Hello everyone and welcome back to Almost There, a Twisted Tale here on Disney Magic. We are on chapter 28 here on the channel. So, let's get into it. Facilier hustled through the crowd of dingy factory workers heading back to their humdrum jobs, their faces filthy with soot and grime. He hated that they worked so close to where he lived. He remembered a time when people such as these weren't allowed anyone anywhere near the quarter, prior to when the railroad was built. When the wealthiest of the city lived here before migrating to those big mansions uptown. Oh, to have those days back. But it looked as if the riffraff were here to stay. The dreadful factories that had taken over the quarter made it so. Facilier arrived at his residence in Pirates Alley. He hung his top hat on the hat rack as he stepped inside, his mind filled with the myriad quandaries before him. His pursuit of Eli LaBeouf's fortune had dominated his existence for years, but that was no longer his top priority. He now had a more pertinent goal: saving his own soul. And in order to do that, he had to get Tiana's signature on that contract. He regarded his bandaged hand with a scowl. He tried to sign Tiana's name to the document himself, but a bolt of lightning had struck the contract, burning off a bit of his skin with it. He should have known his friends on the side would have a provision in place to impede something like that. Well, he was done playing games. He would get Tiana's signature on that contract, and he knew exactly how he would do it. It was time for him to turn up the heat on Naveen. Tiana was more than just smitten with the prince. He'd seen them out in the Congo Square that morning, giggling like a couple of besotted lovebirds, while they danced as if they didn't have a care in the world. After all, it was the threat of Naveen remaining a frog forever that had finally propelled her to accept his deal a year before. What should it be? Should he snatch him off the street and store him in that room with the others? No. It wasn't enough for Naveen to go missing. Tiana needed to see his pain. An unfortunate accident at the Buff sugar mill? A broken leg, maybe? How about a nasty burn from those big kettles filled with piping hot liquid sugar? Wouldn't it be a shame if that pretty face of his was scorched, leaving him scarred for life? Facilier mulled over his options. He should have gone after her prince from the very beginning, but it was too late for recriminations. The only thing that mattered was getting her to comply before his friends on the other side came to collect. As if he'd conjured them just by thinking about them, the floor underneath his feet started to shake, and the temperature around him grew cold as ice. Facilier braced himself as shadows slithered along the floor and walls. "Oh, hello," he said, injecting false cheer into his voice. They spoke in their typical moans and groans. If he closed his eyes, Facilier could still see that dirty, dishevelled little boy, curled up on the filthy floor of an abandoned building. Nowhere to go, no mother to take care of him. The shadows had sought him out. They preyed on him, knowing that he had no other option but to become their minion. Well, he was done being under their thumb. Yes, I know," Facilier answered. "I know I have just a few more days before the payment is due." He held up a hand. However, I have a proposition for you fine gentlemen. I recognise that Tiana's soul was part of our deal. What if I could get you a different soul? I have a few options." A stiff wind blew, strong enough to knock him to the ground. He steadied himself on his hands and knees, bracing against a fierce gust of air. "Okay," Facilier held up his hand to his face. I understand. I will get you hers. When have I ever let you all down?" Another blast of wind sent him crashing into the walls. Jars and bottles toppled from the shelves above him, shattering into thousands of pieces as they landed on the hard floor. And as quickly as his friends from the other side had appeared, they were gone. Everything was silent. The temperature in the room returned to the normal chilliness of late February. Facilier remained on the floor, his chest heaving with each breath he took. They were becoming more impatient, more violent. Their insatiable appetite for mayhem grew stronger with each passing day. He pushed himself up from the floor and searched through the documents that had scattered around the room, seeking the contract he thought he was signing on Tiana's behalf last year. Once he'd found it, he tucked it underneath his arm, grabbed his cane and top hat and stormed out from his emporium. He considered going straight to LaBeouf's sugar mill and snatching that stupid prince by his perfect hair. He could drag Naveen to Tiana's restaurant so that he could torture him in front of her. Those goons working in the bus mill would likely try to stop him. Instead, he took off for Treme. He'd used his illusions on Tiana successfully before. He could use them again. Facilier spent the entire walk devising a credible lie about Naveen's whereabouts. When he arrived at the restaurant, the waitress informed him that Tiana wasn't there. Facilier could barely control his rage. "Where is she?" he growled. The waitress looked him up and down as if he were a foul bug she wanted to squash with a shoe. How dare this little peon treat him this way? He stepped closer to her. "Where is she?" he repeated slowly. "Is there a problem here?" Facilier stepped back as James walked through the swinging door. A red and white checkered towel was thrown across one burly shoulder. He was strong and healthy, and had no idea just how much he owed Facilier for being here. "Can I help you?" the man asked. By the tone of his voice, Facilier could tell that he had an opinion of him, one that was not good. "I was looking for the owner of this restaurant," Facilier answered. "Well, I'm one of the owners, thanks to me." He should tell him that right now. What would his reaction be? What would James say if he learnt that an artillery shell, meant for his heart, had instead embedded itself in a tree in Belgrade? All because Facilier had petitioned it for it to happen that way on his behalf, had paid for it, possibly with his own soul. "It's a young woman who introduced herself to me as the owner," Facilier said. "She wanted to talk to me about possibly being an entertainer for the guests." He pulled out a deck of cards and did quick work, flipping them and fanning them out. "Tiana never mentioned that." James pulled the towel from his shoulder and wiped his hands with it. "She had some business to tend to. A friend called on her for help. She'll be gone overnight, but she'll be back sometime tomorrow. I'll tell her you stopped in." "Great," Facilier said. He tipped his hat to the man and gave the waitress, who still stared at him suspiciously, a stern look. "You can count on my return." As he walked away from the restaurant, Facilier clutched the handle of his cane so hard that he nearly broke it. He couldn't sit around waiting for Tiana to show up. Time was running out. Where could she have gone? Facilier retreated to the French Quarter. He prowled around the market, searching stalls where he'd noticed her shopping in the past. Maybe she stopped to make a few purchases before travelling to this supposed friend in need. When he didn't see her anywhere, he took off for the pier, hoping to find her looking at all the freshly caught seafood being sold along the banks of the Mississippi. He slipped several times on the slimy green algae, clawing its way up to the dock. There was something pernicious happening here. The never-ending fog, the peculiar algae growing on the water. He'd asked around about the bug Tiana had accused him of summoning, and discovered that a swarm of giant mosquitoes had attacked those at Congo Square after he'd left that morning. He didn't know what had caused any of it, but he knew it was all supernatural, and malevolent at that. And he wasn't the one behind it. "Can I help you, fella?" a fisherman asked. Facilier turned his nose up at his foul stench, but the man didn't seem to notice. "Yes," he said. "I'm looking for a black girl. Not too long out of high school. A little bit skinny." "Oh, you're talking about the one with the restaurant over in Treme. She comes by to get fish every so often." "That's her," Facilier said. "Have you seen her around today?" "Sure did. She came by looking to rent a boat, and I sent her over to old Pete because none of my boats are good for trawling around the bayou." "The bayou?" Facilier asked, his mouth going dry. "That's what she said," the man replied. "I thought maybe she's going to try her hand at frogging. Fry up some frog legs to serve in that restaurant of hers." Facilier rubbed his jaw. "Maybe you're right," he said, but the old fisherman had it all wrong. There was only one reason Tiana would take off for a last-minute trip to the bayou. Only one person she could be on her way to see. Things had just become infinitely worse for him.